Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Jonathan Griffiths with me, who's got a few aliases like Carnivore Muscle. He used to be known as a composition consultant as well. And I'm going to ask him the question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Jonathan, why did you become carnivore?
That's a great question. So thanks first of all, thank you for having me on the talk today for an interview. I appreciate you inviting me on. Why did I become carnivore? So this started back 4 years ago, 4 years and 5 days ago. So February the 2nd, 2020 was my start date. I didn't start January the 1st because there was too much chocolate left over after Christmas. But I kind of heard ramblings about it, World Carnivore Month, that sort of thing around that period of time. So that's when World Carnivore Month was really a thing. Like people really started to hear on it and talk about it. I'd say that's probably when it really started to trend upwards around that sort of time period. So at the time, I was working at a vegan health food shop. At that point, I was probably there for a few months, and I was still eating animal foods. Then I was thinking like, I'm seeing a lot of people come in, they're not very well, mostly plant-based or vegan. They're coming in spending sometimes £300-400 per month on supplements of all various different kinds, all the sorts you could think of. So herbs, vitamins, minerals, weird complex mixtures of things, tinctures, bottles. And I thought, they're spending all this money, they're probably spending more on this than they are food. So something's obviously wrong with the food they're eating. And obviously I've got my nutrition degree, which I completed in 2018. And I kind of understood, okay, animal foods are essential. We weren't taught in great detail the significance of animal foods in university. It was simply that we needed iron, B12, vitamin D, omega-3, things like that. But they weren't too keen on disparaging the difference between plant foods and animal foods. It was all about eating a balanced diet, lots of fruit, fiber, vegetables, phytonutrients, and all the things that apparently your body doesn't really need. And I found that to be true myself. So going back a little bit in the past, I started to mess around with my body in different ways. So when I was about 11 years old, I'd say somewhere between a 10 and 14-day water fast. In that time, I drank only water. I didn't consume salt, funny enough. And I was drinking occasional lemon juice at night, just because I thought it was apparently good. When you sort of read your mum's women's magazine sort of thing, whatever it is, women's health, whatever, it says, lemon juice at this time of the day, it's great for detoxing, all this sort of thing. So I thought I'd add that in because it seems to be quite innocuous. And at the time I was, looking at calories and things, I thought, okay, that's like 2 calories per so many milliliters. I could probably get away with that. It's not going to break the bank. And I was looking at myself, I had probably self-image issues at that point. I probably still do now, to be honest. I'm bodybuilding still. Fast forward to the end of that water fast, nothing happened. My weight stayed the same. I looked the same. Did I feel better? Probably about the same, to be honest. And that was probably my first thoughts around like the concept of calories and calories out. Obviously, something there didn't work. I should have lost 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds. So that taught me that there's a very strong hormonal aspect to it. Then I sort of packed that one in, didn't really think much about it again. I didn't revisit it. Then I started competing in bodybuilding competitions. So this was roughly 2 years after I started training in the gym, which was about the age of 14. My brother got me in the gym. We're doing different workouts. So he'd go in the big boy section, of all the big boy weights, and I'd use the little weights, the pink dumbbells and, the ab crunch ball thing and, a few like assisted pull-ups and things like that. Bit of elliptical training, so cardio. And from within about 6 weeks, I got pretty shredded. So I started off bit of a belly, mostly hormonal puppy fat, you might call it. I got slim, athletic built, ripped. Like by anyone's standards, probably top 5% physiques in any gym that I'd go to at the age of about 16. And that's quite telling to me. I was like, okay, well, I'm doing quite well here. Something's obviously in my favor, whether that be genetic or situational, what have you. My brother and dad, both very athletic, both, won their sports days, events and things like that. So there's definitely a genetic component there towards athleticism. Now, moving forward a little bit, see bodybuilding, bigger is better. You don't get small bodybuilders that win nowadays, really, unless they're in a smaller division where they're sort of capped at a certain weight category, perhaps. I was like, okay, how do I get bigger? So more carbs, more protein. What inflates your body the fastest? And it's going to be a mixture of carbs, protein, and fats at the highest amount possible. Pretty much emulating the how to put it, the livestock feed that we know of today. So which is pretty much the food pyramid or the food guidelines. So high carb, quite well, relatively high fat, generally speaking, and protein quite moderate. Did I get fat doing that? At some points, yes. However, a lot of that was mitigated by the exercise I was doing. So I was doing perhaps, I don't know, 15 hours a week of activity. About 3 hours of that was circuit training. About 6 hours of that was sprint training. The rest of it was a combination of, I don't know, walking, PE at school, gym, powerlifting, all sorts of stuff. I was seriously active and I'd cycle everywhere, walk everywhere. I wasn't getting lifts anywhere really, apart from to the athletics club. And moving forward a bit, I sort of started to refine things a bit more. So I was like, okay, I really enjoyed bodybuilding. My knees at that time could no longer take the sprinting, all the extra stuff I was doing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to focus on my intentions of bodybuilding. It's more impressive to walk around as a big muscular bodybuilder than it is to walk around as an athletic looking sprinter, in my opinion, just because a lot of people, you can wear a t-shirt and no one would know you're a decent sprinter sort of thing. So I was competing at county level and that sort of thing, but I just wanted that. I don't know. I think I had some self-esteem issues, that sort of thing. So I wanted that visual effect, which a lot of people won't admit, but yeah, as a man, I want to look good. That's absolutely my prerogative. And then that's obviously scalable based on who you are, what your objectives are, and what you want to achieve long term. Moving forward a bit, obviously quit sprint training. I'm still doing different sports, rugby, American football, soccer, or, English football sort of thing. And I started to lose interest in those over time and had issues with my back. So I believe I had bilateral pars defect, which was a result of an injury when I was about, say, 13, 14 years old. So this was in school when I was playing rugby in an international sports tour in Italy. Illegal tackle, absolutely nothing was correct or legal about it, if that makes sense. So it was absolutely not deserved and it was out of play. I didn't even have the ball in my hand, put it that way. So it was a seriously bad tackle and I think the guy should have been put in prison for what he did. I really do, because what he did was not right. I'm a bit bitter about it still, obviously, because that's obviously gone down the line. That's meant I've had to put titanium rods in my back and all sorts of things. And obviously my mental health went down because of that, because I could no longer do the stuff in the gym that I wanted to do. So a lot of aspects of my life were drastically reduced. All the things I wanted to do, I couldn't do. So, as years went on, that bilateral pars defect, which is you basically have these two little bones at the bottom of your spine. They basically cracked off, which meant that bottom level of the spine, it was the L5, S1 sort of area, was no longer stable. So it meant the vertebrae, I believe it was the L5, actually shifted forward, which for anyone that knows, hits nerves, means you're walking around, you're in pain. And now at that point, going fast forwarding a bit to my original point of conversation, which was about the vegan health food shop. So supplements, they're great. Reduce inflammation, take turmeric. Oh, turmeric's not good enough anymore. You have to take curcumin extract with black pepper. I did all that stuff. I did all of it, all the supplements you could think of. Didn't do anything really, to be honest. I didn't notice much benefit. Some things were a bit better, like my knee pain reduced a bit, but I'd probably attribute most of that to the omega-3 that's taking in. So for me, omega-3 was something I really noticed early on, was a big impactor of my health. And I'll get onto that topic a little bit later, but what I would say from that point was all these things didn't work. I became anemic. So I felt gaunt, lost a lot of weight. My skin broke out. I didn't feel great. Lots of bad things in my health. Mood obviously got even worse. Severe depression, anxiety, the lot. Chronic fatigue. My immune system was basically crap. I had lots of viral infections, which in turn damaged my liver and kidneys because I couldn't fight off any pathogens in my body. And that's despite using all the supplements under the sun, all the vitamin C, everything you can imagine. I was loading on it, like £100 a month probably or more, just on supplements. It didn't do the job. So obviously, going to the point of the vegan health food shop, I was like, all the most nutrient dense foods, the supplements aren't doing it. What can the diet do? So I started to look at the carnivore diet. And interestingly, I did actually start the carnivore diet not for long, for 5 months stint, when I was at age of 16. But I did that using cans of tuna, 5 a day, honestly, and a few eggs. So it's quite a bizarre diet to follow, but when I set mind to something, I can do it. I got quite lean doing that. If I was to guess how much protein and fat I was having each day, fat was below 50 grams. Protein was probably about 200 grams or something, roughly around there. Sometimes I have a whey protein shake, but effectively I was doing a carnivore diet. My digestion was a lot better, which is quite odd. I attribute that mostly to the mass of food being severely restricted. I did end up with mercury poisoning. So mental health went down. So I was trying all these different things at various different times, and a lot of it did not work. It was absolutely horrendous. Then going to the whole point of the vegan health food shop. So I've been meeting lots of people, not well, really unwell. No one ever looked healthy to me, honestly. No offense to them, but they just didn't look like they're going to live past the age of 50, if I'm honest. Deterioration, sort of pale white skin, very gaunt, thin hair falling out. And they just look severely aged. Like they couldn't take care of themselves. It's quite sad to see because I'm quite an empathetic person, or at least I tried to be. And obviously thought, I can't stay in this job for any longer, So then fast forwarding a bit, I did a bit more research on the carnivore diet. I thought, okay, I'm actually going to do this and I can commit to this. So the first year of my carnivore diet was on and off, obviously dealing with, as a bodybuilder, the fitness industry is very much focused on binge eating. They do promote that, in my opinion. You go onto any Instagram influencers, story wall. It's like, oh, I'm having this grenade protein bar. This is my protein cupcake. I'm going to see how many I can shove in my gob in 10 minutes. I do see that a lot, and it is more common than not. The idea of cheat meals and refeed days and adding in the extra stuff your body doesn't need. I was victim of that. Obviously, I put that food in my mouth. It's my job. But these foods are made to be hyper palatable. They're not foods. They are ultra processed foods, not just processed foods. They are ultra processed foods, which means you're probably putting in processed foods together with other processed foods to make an ultra processed food. Nutrient intake of this sort of thing, the nutrient content was absolutely disastrous. And I was looking at all the ingredients. I was thinking, yeah, this can't be good for me. And I do enjoy some of these treats nowadays. I'm not absolutely bored to the idea that you can have a cake at a party or something, or have a meal out of family, stuff like that. I'm quite for that if people enjoy it and it doesn't make them suffer too much. But for me, I just limit it and I just keep it to a minimum that I find tolerable, and while still giving me that sort of pleasure, novelty. So some things I do like having, which are not even carnivore foods. One of them actually is a cheese toastie or a cheese sandwich. That's something I really enjoy. Mostly for nostalgia. My nan used to make that for me. So that's something I'd consider quite a nice treat. Philadelphia spread, white bread, strong, sharp, mature cheddar cheese. That does the job for me. But as and when, I know when we have these things, you have them too often, they're not as enjoyable anymore. Bringing me forward a little bit. So I started up my online nutrition consultancy a couple of years ago. I need an outlet. I didn't really see much marketing potential for what I was doing. Obviously, carnivore diet really kicked up on social media a few years back. And I thought, well, I'm watching these videos and people are missing the point so many times, especially come from a background as a bodybuilder. The body composition side of it was, in a lot of cases, disastrous. It was always either, you need to eat really high fat or really high protein, low fat, low protein, all those different things. And I saw a lot of pitfalls to a lot of the ideologies which are going around. I started to watch these videos. I was like, okay, I need to do something here. I need to nip it in the bud. Obviously, bodybuilding, I've been in contest shape lots and lots of times. I know what it takes to get into shape. I know the value of tracking macros. I know the value of the carbohydrate insulin model. I kind of know what works well for different people as well, just for experience. There's certain phenotypes of people that just tend to be better on certain kind of macros, certain kind of foods. That takes me to basically modern day. So I started up a YouTube channel 14, 15 months ago, roughly. Started off as composition consultant, as you alluded to. A few months back, I just moved it to Carnivore Muscle, a bit more concise, a bit more precise. I decided not to use my name in the title of my socials because it's hard to spell, hard to say. I've got a very long name, Jonathan Michael Griffiths, BSc, I can't say Coach Jonathan Griffiths. It's too long, and people won't know how to say it. They won't be able to spell it. Which is why I wish I had a name like Steven. Sometimes it's much easier. But yeah, that's pretty much it I'd say in a nutshell. But I'm happy to sort of go into more detail about any points if you've got any questions.
Well, I thought that was fabulous, Jonathan. And one of the reasons I like having you on or working with you on the Carnivore Team GB is because you always bring to the table something different and new and honest. So have I got questions? Yes. If we could do a sort of like a quick fire round of the questions that come from that brilliant introduction. Let's see how that goes. So first thing that jumped out at me was omega-3. So how you said that really helped, and turmeric and black pepper and all that. And I went down that route when I had lower back problems. How was you getting your omega-3s?
So omega-3 at the time was mostly through supplements, so liquid bottle. I've actually got one right here.
Yeah, please show us.
So this is one, it's obviously been green screened out, but that's one that I use. It's one of two brands that I think is excellent.
What's the brand? Could you say it? Because you couldn't.
Brand is, Barefoot Nutrition. So Barefoot Nutrition omega-3. The other one I've used is Wiley's Peak EPA, and I always buy in a bottle. I think it's less processed. It's not been put into a capsule. Liquid bottle, job done. The distilling process is good. They use small, low toxicity fish. The only concern I do have, although I'd say I've not experienced an issue because of it, is potential aldehyde content. So that's a toxin. Your body does produce some of it, obviously, but too much of something is not great for the body. So I'll just I want to be very clear with people, if you're going to use these things, it's better to get it from whole food. And that's what I do for the majority of my omega-3 intake. So I am consuming mackerel, omega-3, very occasionally I consume sardines, things like that, in water and brine. Or just I steam it, smoke it myself, something like that. But yeah, that seems to be a very big thing for me. I was actually listening to a few things over the past year by Jack Kruse, and the significance of DHA is really, really undervalued in my opinion, particularly for people with gut distress, autistic spectrum disorder. It seems to be that people with autistic spectrum disorder, like myself, they have a high requirement for certain things. I think a lot of these things can be characterized by certain traits, genetic expressions, markers. So you can look at a lot of studies online. So if anyone's watching this and they be curious, common metabolic diseases in autistic people, something like that. You can go on PubMed, Science Direct, something like that, and find out some information about that. Detoxification pathways are usually poor. Sleep quality is poor, depression, anxiety. There's lots of comorbidities towards people with autistic spectrum disorder. And I think if I was to pick one thing, it'd probably be, in terms of supplemental wise, it'd be something either between vitamin D, omega-3, taurine, or maybe magnesium. I think you can get all the B complexes you need in meat, for example. But I'm not against supplements, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people say, you can get all nutrition you can from beef. Yeah, that's true. But I've experimented myself. This is my N equals 1. Added things in, taken them out. And it seems to be that adding omega-3 to my diet, either through a supplement or just extra oily fish, seems to be really helpful. Seems to benefit the enteric function of your body. There's pretty strong suggestion, at least, that a high DHA concentration within the diet seems to improve endothelial function in the gut as well, which is great if you've got intestinal permeability. If I use painkillers, as I was talking about earlier about the spine and stuff, that seems to really wreck my guts. I use them a day. That's it. So I have to stay on top of my gut health, which means give my body what it needs. So that seems to be really impactful for me.
Brilliant. You used a classic oxymoron at the beginning when you said vegan health food, and you mentioned 3 nutrients there, and you've also just mentioned something I think I'd like to say. You said look up on PubMed or Science Direct. A lot of vegans might have used Google, for instance, to look for a good source of iron. You mentioned iron as a deficiency in the vegan community. Maybe it's not their fault because they've Googled iron. And if you do this, you'll see the top 10 sources of iron are not the top 10 sources of iron. They're the top 10 sources of plant iron, which isn't heme iron and is not bioavailable. So I think you're right to do your own research, and obviously you've done that. I really like the fact that you were even, 11, 12, 13, 14, looking at things and being critical and doing some critical thinking, which is really lacking in modern society. Um, I, I was very interested in a couple of bits because you said about your own self-esteem, but also you were saying about the vegans look a certain way. And I absolutely hate sort of generalizing, but that is true. A couple of celebrities recently, like Robert Downey Jr., went down the vegan route and his appearance deteriorated. One of the shows I like in the UK is Would I Lie to You? Or one of the people on there I like is Lee Mack. And I couldn't work out what was going on because he started to look really ill and I was a bit worried about him. And, lo and behold, you find out he's vegan. So I don't think it's labeling people. I think it is just a fact, that most vegan influencers, even the ones that claim to be healthy, they look like pencil necks. They don't look great. Their teeth look terrible. I'm thinking of people like Grieger, who sounds and looks absolutely terrible. So why do you think you had self-esteem issues, and has that resolved?
I'd say mostly, yeah. I think part of the issue is anyone with any kind of neurodiversity, you go through school, these things don't get picked up on. He's a quiet boy. She's a quiet girl. He likes to spend more time on his own. It's mostly because I wasn't that well socialized. People didn't ask me questions. I left to my own devices. Because I had no strong social ability, I had to have, speech and language therapy. Speaking didn't come naturally to me. It's something which was learnt rather than sort of picked up on. So it's quite an interesting thing to sort of go into. And I'm glad you brought up this topic actually. In regards to like self-esteem, I'd say it's picked up quite a lot. I think the main problem that people have is that they worry so much about what other people think of them. Whereas I think if you have yourself and you write down your pros and cons, I used to be very impatient. I used to be easily agitated. I used to be easily stressed, easily anxious, very unhappy, bitter, disappointed with things. I didn't seek pleasure out of anything. I couldn't find pleasure out of anything. But right now, my brain state seems to be better. And there's lots of links between, oxalates, various different antinutrients, and the negative impacts on people with autistic spectrum disorder. I think a lot of it does come down to the mitochondrial health level, so the quantum biology, and also the deuterium level in the body. High deuterium, low mitochondrial function, lesser ability, and more susceptibility to illness. There seems to be a complex of those kind of things. Then the other things was obviously the leaky gut and intestinal permeability. So I'd say my attitude has changed because I'm in a better place to apply myself. And obviously my background is in bodybuilding, nutrition, that sort of thing. And that did take me quite far, but now I'm able to transfer over the skills I learned in that. So the discipline, the patience, I've been training for 15 years roughly. It takes a long time to build your body. But when you sort of get close towards your end goal, you start to see and you're able to reap the rewards of the time and effort that you put in. So nowadays, like you, Stephen, I'm sure, putting yourself in front of the camera, spending hours upon hours editing videos, trying to perfect it to get the right bit at the right second. For me, it's second nature now because I've applied myself before and now I'm doing it again. My body and mind are in a better state to do that because I've just got the patience to do it, which I think is probably quite natural upon people that follow the carnivore diet. They seem to be quite patient, especially people that are quite far into it. So even people that are long-term keto, long-term carnivores, they seem to be very stoic kind of people. I've met loads of people in our space, Chafee, Baker, Bart K. When you actually speak to these people and you actually know them, I say relatively well, you realize they're very normal people. They're not putting on an act, which is quite interesting. I mean, Bart K does put on an act for his videos, but if you've spoken to him off air, he's actually a very normal, fun-loving kind of person. So yeah, I've learned a lot along the way, and the self-esteem's definitely picked up because I'm probably one of the youngest people in this space right now that consistently uploads. I'm 28 years old. Most people in space are 40, plus. So, I've picked up a lot of self-validation for that, as I'm doing something which most people don't seem to be doing for whatever reason, I don't know, under the age of 40. So yeah, that's my take on the self-esteem issue.
Yeah, I think, yes, you mentioned me there. I don't like my appearance at all. I mean, I get a lot of compliments and I really appreciate them. I'm 60 this year, and people often say, well, what do you put that down to? And I do think it's carnivore. The only supplement I use is the Stem Enhance, and I do think that is part of it. I've got to be honest.
That one.
Yeah, Stem Enhance. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. But I also liked what you said about what people think. Well, there's two things here I want to say. I used to be very conscious when I first got my hearing aids. If I told you what I think made me go deaf, I wouldn't be allowed to say it on YouTube. All right, so people can put together what that might be. And I was really, really conscious of my hearing aids. And there was a quote that I saw about 5-6 years ago, and I thought, I wish I'd read that when I was 20 and been open to it. But it said, when you're 20, you are so worried about what people think of you. And then when you get to 40, you don't care what people think of you. And then when you get to 60, you realise they're not even thinking of you. And, we all worry way too much about what we look and what we look like, what we give out. But that's the world. I mean, it is the world, and if it affects you to the point where you want to do something about it, but make it a positive, but you definitely have. And I would go as far as to say, even your social media content, I love the way that you've worked on it. You sound better, you look better, your backdrop looks great. And that's good. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to present the best version of yourself, as long as, you're not hung up about it and you realise that's what you're doing. I mean, I've been very open about when I went grey, which I can't believe is reversed, and I used to use a bit of mascara to make my hair look blacker, which is a good tip for people. And by the way, if they're starting out and they are worried about their grey. The other thing you mentioned, and I've never heard you talk about this as honestly, is about this terrible tackle and being bitter about it. And that's a strange sort of pejorative term, because do you know what? If something happened to me like that, I think that's not being bitter. I think that's being realistic. That's a proper place to put your anger, because someone has robbed you of your health and done something that's completely out of the game. I would like to ask you, if that had happened in a legitimate tackle, as part of the game, and it was an accident, would you still be bitter?
No, because I don't think it wouldn't be a person's choice if it was like that. And if it just happened, I fell in a funny angle, I probably wouldn't even think about the person. I'd think about the situation, this was dreadful. I wish it didn't happen. But this is more against the person themselves. Obviously, I don't go to bed at night thinking, oh, I hate this guy. I think he, should burn or whatever. I don't think that. But it's like, I really wish he didn't do it. And I wish he could see me right now and just say, I apologise for what I did to you.
Yes. I mean, is your back still giving you problems? How have you managed it? What have you done?
So I had a spinal fusion, as you know, about a year and a month ago, something like that. And that's reduced the pain in the back a lot. What I will say now is, because of my surgery, I've now got a lot of pain in my right hip, which means my mobility is poor. I can walk the dog for 10 to 15 minutes. I can stand for about 15, 20 minutes. So it does prevent me from doing a lot of things. Like, as you know, we had a talk with, I think Phil Escott, that was meant to be coming up soon. For me, sitting on the train for 4 or 5 hours, whatever it was, I couldn't do it. Even if I can stand up, just sitting there, I couldn't do. So between the podcasts I do with people like yourself, the talks, the consultations online, I'm pretty much lying down, which is very frustrating, because it means I can't just go to a party and stand up and meet everyone and, when I sing, dance, and do all the things I used to might have been able to do before. So it's very limiting in that sense. My day-to-day pain is less, I'd say, overall. But the mobility side of it, so walking around, is probably worse overall. It's frustrating, but there's not a lot you can do. But you can just focus yourself on, and focus your attentions on the things that you can do. So I can spend a bit longer sat down now on a chair. My lower back doesn't seize up as much, so I can spend more time editing videos and doing the stuff that you probably do.
Can you get in the gym?
Get in the gym, yes, the gym's fine as well. I can't do deadlifts, can't do bent over rows, can't do squats. Not to any appreciable degree. I can probably bent over a row or deadlift like 20 kilos. For anyone that's wondering, that's not a lot of weight at all for someone my size. That's effectively the bar. I can, however, use very precise movements in my workouts. So a lot of isolation, machine-based apparatus, cables, bands, that sort of thing. I found a way around it, which is quite interesting because I actually had a lot of consultations with people that have had a similar sort of experience to me of injury, and they're like, well, what do I do? You know, I've taken on 2 clients this past few weeks. I've had a similar sort of back problem. And I'll be able to sort of transfer my knowledge onto them. So although it's made a setback for me on a personal level, I've been able to share my experience and how I've overcome a lot of the issues I would otherwise have.
Have you tried a Shakti mat or an acupressure mat?
No, what's that?
Ah, okay. Well, if you think of a bed of nails,
I've got a round thing.
Right.
Yes,
Well,
I've got a round thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the mat is flat, and what happens is you lie on it, and the pressure points will activate all the ascending pain pathways, and then your brain will modulate that pain by the descending pathway mechanism. So when you first get on it, you literally feel like, I can't lie on this for even a minute. I mean, there's that much pain. And you can even feel almost as if there's electricity running through your back sometimes. After maybe a week of using the Shakti mat, I mean, many people report they can sleep on it. They can actually doze off, and they have to get their partner to wake them up and say, after 20 minutes, can you get me off this? And I think that's been remarkable for a lot of people. I mean, I had lower back issues. I've been hospitalised twice and told in my 20s I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 50. There's no way I've ever been in a wheelchair. And here I am at 60 and playing five-a-side football even tonight. So I think a lot of the pain relief I got from the Shakti mat was very convincing, and it might be something I'll send you details of afterwards, because it is worth, if you're lying down, you might as well lie on a Shakti mat for 20 minutes and see if it does reduce the pain. You're tapping into your body's own resource. And I know there's people out there will be thinking, well, this is a bit woo-woo. Why is Stephen talking about this? He's got a science degree. But it works, and it works on a mechanism that's known, which is the ascending and descending pathway. So it's worth a try if you've got any back pain or any pains. I mean, if you've got pain in your hams or your glutes, you know, you just literally just put that area on the mat. 20 minutes later, get away, and you should see some relief, because your body is producing endorphins, which is just an endogenous morphine. So, yeah, I would have a look at that, Jonathan. The other thing you said, and I thought it was quite a funny little thing to add in about what you did when you were a child, was very similar to how they fatten and grow cattle. So could you expand on why you said that?
Yeah, so I actually did my nutrition dissertation on the food guidelines. And before I did that, actually, I was meant to be doing my sports nutrition module, how to optimize sports nutrition for someone. And we had to go by a specific guideline. So it was nothing about N=1 or perfecting what we could do with a certain person. We basically had to coach someone through a dietary intervention. And that was effectively the food pyramid. I didn't agree with it. They got results just because they were doing something different to what they're already doing. And what they're already doing was much worse. But I was thinking, this is a load of rubbish.
Flip the damn food pyramid!
Anyway, the food pyramid, I mean, there's been a funny South Park episode that came out maybe a few years ago now. And they sort of say, oh, no, the food pyramid's wrong. It's upside down. They flip it around. And they're worried about this being some sort of global conspiracy. But if you look at like the macronutrient content, you know, protein, fat, carb, grams of, you know, pig feed, effectively, there's a pig slaughterhouse miles from my house. It's less than a mile from my house. A farm, they're fed a diet which matches the food pyramid in terms of macronutrient grams. So relatively low protein. You know, why do you need an animal to be muscular? You just need to be fat, really. You know, sedentary, store energy. More marbling in an animal means the cut is usually more expensive for the most part. You know, a ribeye steak is more costly than a rump steak, for example, over here. So yeah, I attribute a lot of the lack of success people having with diets with the high carbohydrate intake. And I think if you pretty much reduce the carbohydrates down, Majority of people, reduce processed foods, put those carbohydrate, calories into the fat grams or protein grams or both. You get much better health outcomes. Some people actually, this is actually something I recommend to some people who are just absolutely clueless. Because I link them to this website, and I think it's called PE Diet Calculator, which means Protein Energy Calculator, and it's formulated by a guy called Ted Naiman. So if anyone doesn't know, I believe he was an engineer. So quite a well thought out guy. I don't agree with everything he says about nutrition. He's very big on fiber and stuff like that, but he sort of says, well, if you get your protein right, the rest will pretty much fall into place. And I found that to be true of most people. It's very hard to get fat if you get your protein grammage right, because it has such a high high peptide factor, which allows you to be satiated or feel satiated. So per calorie, protein is extremely satiating. And the way they worked this out was they got different insect models and they fed them different amounts of, protein, carbs, fats. And they found that the energy intake of these little insects was actually less overall if they met their protein requirements. What we know about protein is it is the most nutrient dense food coming from, any meat. So for example, anyone listening to this right now can, go on a chart, Chronometer, MyFitnessPal, nutritiondata.com or whatever it's called. Type in, beef, 100 grams. Okay, 100 grams of beef will give you this percentage of a average person's daily recommended amount of whatever. You compare that to, I don't know, peanut butter, a bit of vitamin B3 in it, loads of omega-6. That's about it. Lots of fiber. That's about it. There's not much else in it. So obviously there's an absolute human requirement for certain nutrients, and we don't seem to be reaching it with the common diet that most of us follow in the Western world.
That's fascinating, and Ted Naiman and his protein energy model is pretty interesting, I think. So, if people wanted to know, can you help them? What do you offer?
Oh, I offer quite a few services actually, so I've expanded my package deal sort of thing. So I do consultations, coaching plans, diet plans, training plans, and several ebooks, all related to carnivore diet, animal foods diet, low carb, keto, what have you. I do specialize in exercise performance and body composition altering, all very affordable stuff, all custom. I don't put people on a calorie plan. I work it out. I do the thinking for people. I don't make it complicated to them. I keep it really simple. I do the work so they don't have to. So people out there with busy jobs that don't, have time to sort of fiddle around trying to work out what they exactly need. Just tell me how you're doing in a consultation. I'll work it out for you pretty much. I'm pretty effective at that, I must admit. Lots of testimonials, like I'm sure you do, Coach Stephen. So check out my stuff. So my website is compositionconsultant.com. My Instagram handle is Carnivore Muscle, and my YouTube channel is Carnivore Muscle as well.
Yeah, I like that. I laughed at you do the hard work so they don't have to. I mean, that's in the UK, that's from an advert about 10 years ago. My favourite actor at that point was Carl Howman. Anyway, that's going back into my acting past. We won't get into that. So, Jonathan, that was fantastic. Jonathan Griffiths, the Carnivore Muscle guy. Carnivore Muscle is a great name. So I'm glad you changed it. I think that's really snappy and, like you say, says it all. So thanks for coming on.
Much appreciate you having me.